Yeah, done that.
Great. So, well, thanks very much for getting in touch and agreeing to have a chat. I have no expertise at all in migraine, so I'm fascinated really just to hear your story, because that was that is or was or has been your issue, hasn't it?
Yeah, I mean, I've well, typically me, because I'm a bit of a perfectionist, and of course perfectionists are always the people that end up with pain, aren't they? I made some notes, look.
But we have to embrace our addictions, but know how to manage them.
Yeah, no, some of the things that I've kind of embraced is not thinking or worrying about doing this before I do it, but I still can't stop myself writing the notes, unfortunately. So yeah, so mine was always migraine. It's always been migraine. For 25 years I've suffered from migraine pain, but actually when I started to do some of the work on Curable, because that's where I started with Curable, and I started to dig around and do a bit of journaling, and I suddenly thought, whoa, hang on a minute. I had hip pain when I was at this time of my life, and this was happening. And then I had back pain when that was happening. And then I got the migraines. And then I found that for about 18 months, they swapped between each other. Sometimes I had migraines, and I remember thinking to myself at the time, whoa, if I've got a back pain, I won't get migraines, because I knew that was the case. So actually, even though I say migraines, and migraines have been the thing that's been the most debilitating, actually there's lots of other little things that I've realized over the years have been caused by that as well.
That timeline's fascinating, isn't it, when you go back over your life, really, and as far as you can recall, and I mean, I've done it with my life actually, and it's fascinating.
Yeah, it's strange, because I wrote down all the things that I thought my migraines were over those years, and I always almost laugh to myself some of the stuff that I have on my list, and those things still pop up. Like today, I could feel something developing, but now I've got where I recognize it and I can do something about it. But I did think to myself for a split second, oh, I think we're going to have a storm. And that's because I used to think that barometric pressure caused my migraines. And the weird thing is, actually, whenever I tried something new, it worked for a month maybe, and then it didn't. And when I look back, I think, well, that's probably more like that kind of placebo effect, where you kind of you've got positive things going on because you think, oh, I'm trying something new. I'm in control of this. I've got something new that I can try, and that will control it and that will stop it. And it kind of does for a little while. And then it hits you, in the face about 3-4 weeks later, when you get the worst migraine in the world. And I remember thinking to myself over the years, this is paying me back for thinking that I got rid of them. This is saying to me, no, you haven't got rid of these. You just thought you had, ha, ha, ha. I'm going to give you the biggest migraine you've ever had for the fact that you thought that you could get rid of them. All those thought processes. And it's funny, because when I read your book, I started underlining the bits that made me think, that's me. And then I got to a couple of chapters, I think it's chapter 11 or 12, where I might as well have just underlined every sentence. And I thought, how can somebody else know my brain so well? Because it felt like I can't be that obvious. Like, it can't be that easy. And it can't be that somebody can know all these things about me. And then I started to think, well, hang on a minute, that means that my brain is no different to anybody else's, and it follows the same pattern as most other people's. And of course, that made a big difference to me, because early on, when they say you have to believe that that's what's causing it, that it's being caused, that the pain is being caused by TMS. And I always thought, yeah, I totally believe it, because I get migraines, and I knew that I hadn't got a brain tumor and that everything, I'd had my neck scanned and everything else. And so I always believed that. But actually, it wasn't until I read those chapters where actually that could have been me. That was me that you were writing about, that I thought, no, I really get it now. I really get it. So I kind of thought I knew, and I really believed it, but actually there clearly was that little 5% or whatever it is that didn't quite believe it until I read those chapters. That's when it really, really, the penny dropped.
Yeah, it's fascinating. There's something that sits uncomfortably with me with another word for the things that people think it's been: migraine, degenerative disc, arthritis, all these pathological medical terms. So we ask people we want you to think it's not that anymore. And this is a thing that's been for years for that person, or multiple things. So we want you to call it mind-body syndrome, TMS. And for anyone who doesn't know TMS, that's the definition. What is it? Tension myositis syndrome? Yeah.
Sometimes call it myoneuro and sometimes myositis.
Yeah.
I don't actually like that. I don't like the word TMS, and I use it because it's the only thing I can think of describing it. But the reason I don't like it is because it sounds like all those other words like fibromyalgia and all those other things. It just sounds like another thing, and I don't like it.
Even they're trying to, there's a movement, if you like, that people will say, oh, well, there's pathophysiological disease. And I think, gosh, is that any less scary than fibromyalgia? To a scared person? And they almost, it doesn't matter what you name it. We should stop naming it. The thing is, pain is a signal for you to look after you. Distill it down and don't give it another name. I've now got, and I join a group of people who have this, and there's a danger in what's yours like, what's mine like, what's yours like, what's mine like. There's a danger in that. There's a lot of good that can come from that, but you've got to get the balance right.
Yeah, that's interesting you saying about getting the balance right, because I was listening to, there's a chap in America called Joe Tunon, I think his name is, or Tunnon, and he said he got to a point now where he just wants to stop talking about it because he felt like, he said, I stopped going on the forums and reading stuff because I was getting better, but I felt like I was almost pulling myself back into the mire again with all this stuff. And I have found the same thing. I mean, I joined the Nicole Sachs forum, Journal Speak, because actually Journal Speak got me to a point where I had Journal Speak got me to a point where I suddenly, I think in your book you say, there might have been a point in your life where all these things happened, and then you had a massive migraine, for instance, and the two things got connected together. And I kept thinking, I don't know when that was, but actually through Journal Speak, it suddenly hit me. There was, in a year, I cannot believe it now that I did not think of it, that in that year there were at least 5 or 6 massive things that happened to me in that time, huge things that I just accepted and moved on, got on with it, and I couldn't even remember. And then when I journaled them individually, I looked at this and I thought, oh my goodness, they were all in 1 year. They all happened at the age of 30, all of them, and they crept into just 31. And they ended with me having my first child, which then, of course, in itself is stressful when you're working 3 days a week and you're looking after a baby and all the rest of it. But all the stuff that happened up until that point, you know, big things like my dad dying, I got married, I had 2 miscarriages, and I had not put these things all together into 1 year's worth of crap. And that's when my hips started playing up. The first time I was walking and thought, why does my hip snap? Why does it have that weird snappy thing? And it hurts when I do it. And I had never put all of those things together in one basket. And if I thought about them now, I think, oh my goodness me, that's ridiculously traumatic what went on at that time, you know?
Even one of those things, Elizabeth.
Yeah, one of them. I mean, when I think about all the things that happened, and my husband, I was getting married to my husband, and he fell off a roof and broke his wrist, and he broke his wrist the same day that my dad died, and my grandma died a week later. And I put all these things down and I thought, oh, all this stuff. But now when I read other people's stuff on forums, I kind of think, oh, I don't I don't want to go back there again. Do you know what I mean? I've come through that part. I've written that all down. I've slain that to death, and I don't really want to go down that road again. So there is good reason, I think, for me not to keep dwelling, you know, on other people, what other people have wrong with them. And there are great people out there that are really good at giving advice and all the rest of it. But I just think that's probably not me, you know. And I'm not 100% there. So I'm still, you know, I have little falls and want to then, you know, sort of do better things and make it easier for myself. So I don't necessarily want to have a fall because I've been reading somebody else's and empathizing with theirs, you know.
Yeah, of course, because they're historically a potential cues, aren't they?
Yeah, definitely. Most definitely they are potential cues. Even doing this, it's your fault that on Saturday I started to get a migraine. And I know it is because I did some meditation for what is making me feel like this. And I thought, I know, because I was writing these sheets of paper and I was remembering all the things that I wanted to think about and talk about. And I knew that's what it was. I just knew it. But it's good because I knew it. Whereas in the past, I wouldn't.
It would scare you probably historically.
Yeah. There would have been the fear, and I would have got more and more upset and more fearful. And I would have thought, how am I going to get through my day? I've got this to do at the end of the day. How am I going to do that if I end up with a migraine? I can't do that. That can't happen. And now I don't do that because I know that it's self-perpetuating. It just will turn into a migraine if that's what I'm going to do. So I don't have to, but I do just say to myself, no, not going there. I am not going.
Now you have a choice, don't you? I remember we had a little dialogue. I don't know where it was in the group. I can't remember exactly, about this 14-day period. You said, Drew, I've got this. My migraine's down to a certain frequency, but they always come in 14 days. Do you remember?
Yeah. Yes.
Tell me how you process that, because you sent me a message back saying I did it. I went to the bee garden and I nailed it, or something like that.
Yeah. So up until that point, I was practicing the stuff that Alan Gordon teaches you to do with the fear and not seeing your migraine as fearful. And I was leaning into that and looking at that with curiosity, and that was starting to work. But what I was finding was that so I'd go maybe for a whole week where I'd notice that I was getting one, and I'd lean into it and it would go away. And I would lean into it and it would go away. And I could keep this up. It was almost like I'm filling up a vase of water. I could keep this up for about 2 weeks. And then all of a sudden, bang. And I couldn't work out why that was happening. And you'd said to me, you know, you're associating that with something that is bad, that is fearful, that is not good. You need to associate it with something that is good, and preferably with something that might be physical, so that you can move, and that you can not think about it. You're thinking about something that you enjoy, something that you like doing, something that you want to reward yourself with. And what I did with that was I'd get towards that time, and we were lucky because the weather was really nice. And I would just get up from my desk, go out into the garden, pick up because I love gardening.
Oh, frozen.
You back?
Oh, you're frozen. Frozen a little bit. You just about. I'll ask you just to pick up when you said, "I love my garden." I'd just get up from my desk and go in my garden.
Yeah, so I love my garden, and I would just get up from my desk, go out into the garden, pick up some gardening tools, and just literally potter around in the garden. So I knew I was doing something physical. I was moving, which has always worked for me, actually. If I've moved around, that's always helped. And I was also thinking about my gardening. I was doing something I enjoy, something I love doing. And it would pass. It would just pass. And I would think, no, I'm out in the garden. I'm really enjoying it. I'm having a really nice time out here. Nothing else to think about, nothing else to worry about. This is what I want to do. And I just kept doing that over and over and over again. And I got over that hurdle into 3 weeks. And at the moment, probably, I'm still at about 4 weeks. This is, and if you think about it, it hasn't been that long since I did that. That was probably only a couple of months ago maximum.
Yeah.
So now my thing that I'm trying to do is to find other things that are triggering that for me, and that's the difficulty at the moment. I'm struggling to find the things that are triggering that. Definitely logging on in the morning for work is a trigger, and I'm trying to do that thing, no, looking forward to this, really looking forward to this, logging on, looking forward to doing this, get logged on. I found another one. This sounds so ridiculous, but for work, another one is budget emails. I've realized that when they come in, my heart goes, ooh, because I always think, oh no, this is going to be for something big that I've forgotten about, or that I didn't put £500,000 in my budget for, that kind of thing. And I've learned that over the years through doing my job, where in the past, when I first started doing my job, those things happened, and now I'm still doing them. I'm still thinking them. Yeah. So that's a big one for me. And I'm just trying to work out what other ones there are. The thing I'm rubbish at is the 7 thing, where you say, if you do it 7 times, you break the habit, the old habit, and you start a new habit. That's the one I'm struggling with.
Well, habit formation, and so neuroscientifically, and this is based on it's BJ Fogg, what's the book called? Tiny Habits. So 7 to 10 is almost like if you said, if I was going to try and remember your name, and it's Elizabeth, it's Elizabeth, about 7 to 10 times, I'd see your face, oh, that's Elizabeth. And it's the same with that early recollection. There's a pathway there within 7 to 10 repetitions, but it fades, it fades. Now, the thing that wires those repetitions or the cues together is the power of the emotional intensity.
Right. Okay.
Emotional intensity. Because if it was just repetition, we'd all learn to do things at about exactly the same time. So I learned to drive after about 6 weeks. My dad was a driving instructor. I was so excited at 17. So there's only so many things to learn in a car, isn't there? Gear changes, clutch, and well, there's no clutches nowadays, but 6 weeks, dead excited. So the excitement meant my brain could wire all that together really quick because it was a high level of emotion.
Yeah.
Now, if I compared it to my wife, it took her a year, and it took me 6 months to say, why don't you learn how to drive with me dad? And my dad would go, she's hard work. But she was never emotionally engaged in the process, you see. So eventually there's got to be some level of emotion and focus, because it's, in a car is stressful, but she wasn't ever engaged in it. So she can drive fine, but doesn't like driving. So it doesn't even like driving now. So you can see someone wasn't that engaged in it. So it's the emotional intensity that's key. So if I asked you 2 simple things, is how many times, it's in the book, but how many times you need to lose someone, and a loved one, through grief, to know what it would feel like the next time?
Well, probably only once, I should think.
Absolutely. Once. You'll know how to cry. You'll know who to go to. You'll know not what to say. You won't have a voice. You'll know where you'll feel it. You'll know that you can't work that day. You'll know that you might not be able to walk that day. If it's a really powerful connection. If it's somebody halfway around the world who dies, so you're not emotionally connected to, we have a little look on the news and go, that's sad, isn't it? Yeah, anyway, what's for tea?
Yeah, that's very true, isn't it?
So it's the emotional charge with the behaviour, not the behaviour. Now,
but how do you get that emotional charge?
Right. Okay, so that comes with something negative. If you have chocolate, you don't have to say, oh, that was really exciting, that chocolate feeling, that that pint of beer, the first time you ever buy something for yourself that's thrilling, or sex, or drugs, or alcohol, or working really hard and getting the deal, or winning the race. You don't have to say, oh, that was very exciting. That the brain already knows that's exciting because it's dopamine driven.
Yeah.
immediately, but they're all destructive habits, all very destructive.
Yeah.
So that means that we use them because they very quickly make us feel better. Very quickly. So you might have loved work, or you might love work. I love work, but I was a professional footballer, so I just swapped one for the other.
Yeah.
So whenever I feel stressed, or I have felt stressed, I go to work because I'm safe. It takes me towards safety. But if I overuse that behaviour, then being at work too long with a family and not attending to them creates a pain. Then I get a pain from the behaviour I'm using to take me away from pain.
Yeah.
So it depends what our fix is, whether it's chocolate or food or gambling or anything. Will make us feel really quickly, the quickest electrical circuit to feel better. So at a very stressful time in your life, you overuse it. So, and there's the pain. Anyone's pain depends what they overuse.
Yeah.
You overthink. And so the system that's been overloaded shuts down, or the system that's been neglected shuts down, and that's where you'll feel the pain.
Yeah, it's interesting, isn't it? Because when I was trying to think through that year of all these bad things happening, that's when my first migraine happened. And at the same time as all that going on, I was working for the same company I'm working for now, but they offered me a different job. And the guy that had done it had left. I'd been told to do what I thought was an impossible job, and there was nobody to support me and nobody to help me. And I can still remember the sheer devastation of getting in the lift with this whacking headache that I didn't know was a migraine. I just thought, oh my God, what is happening to my head?
Right.
And going down in the lift thinking, this is terrible. This is awful. This is dreadful. Nobody's going to help me. Nobody's going to do anything for me. I'm going to fail. I'm going to fail completely badly at this. And I'm going to look like a complete idiot doing it. And I remember that massive headache that day and all the other stuff that was going on around that. And so I can pinpoint exactly when that happened.
That's a massive emotional charge with a negative situation. So anytime your brain now sees a negative situation, before you do sometimes, before you do, this is crazy, before you do, and so it triggers the quickest way to stop you overdoing the thing you normally do when you feel stressed. It's a very logical system, isn't it, really?
It's very, very clever. And of course, what it's done over the years is made me go to bed, basically. It's made me draw the curtain, get into bed and be safe and stay in bed.
Keep you safe, yeah. But for the organism is safe. It's almost like a parody again. Let's give her the pain so we stay safe. We need her to interpret this pain, but she doesn't really get it. She hasn't got it yet. She keeps fighting the pain, pushing past it or fearing it. So we'll just have to keep this state until she gets it.
Yeah.
So to relearn this.
Yeah.
Relearn. Because that's what you do. We're all doing. We're all relearning to respond differently to the same cue, because the cue will always be there.
Yeah.
Cue. And we've always take a bike ride, fallen off the bike. So many times I ask you, do you want to go on the bike? Elizabeth, you say, oh, Drew, no, I can't. My back's bad. I grazed my knee. I've got poor balance, and the weather's bad.
Yeah.
What in reality is that? It's fear, essentially.
Yeah.
So we build those walls to keep us safe, but then we never get the joy of riding the bike. So to relearn that, we've got to think differently, breathe differently, move differently, and feel differently. To ride the bike, you've got to do it all in one go and need someone to hold your hand and stuff. But what you're doing essentially is you're still, you meet in the queue, the bike. Right, you have to be able to control your thoughts at that moment. The fastest thought will be, I'm not going on that bike again.
Yeah.
It's to say, well, I could go on that bike. There's nothing wrong with the bike. There's nothing wrong with me. Oh yeah, but don't go on the bike. Yeah, but don't go on the bike. This is 1 million times faster than, this is the subconscious system's 40 million bits of data per second.
Yeah.
The conscious is quite slow, 40 bits of data. And remember, when fear comes, we want to feel better, so we shut it down. So you have to commit to say, okay, once this week, with whatever it is, I'm going to think about going on the bike. But in that moment, I'm not going to go on the bike. I'm just going to think, and I'm going to be able to control my emotions in that moment. And I'll acknowledge that. Don't go on the bike, Drew. You've got bad balance and your back's bad. That's okay, but for 2 minutes, I'm just going to think I'm going to go on the bike. Now, in that moment, you just did a 30 seconds of thinking of going on the bike, controlling those thoughts. Or you did it 7 times. If you wanted to, you can just do it once. 7 times is kind of the science, 7 to 10. But if you can wire a positive emotion to that, it starts to release dopamine in the brain that wires the new pathway together. So you're making the brain excited about a non-exciting thing.
Yeah, right.
Right. Now that's a thought. Or you might, but you're rewarding yourself for laying a new neural pathway thought.
Yeah.
You might have the bike idea, and you might find yourself, oh, well, I've got bad balance, I'm going to hurt myself, and not do the thoughts, but sense your breathing and think, right, okay, in this moment, thinking about it, I'm going to breathe for 2 minutes. You're now relaying a breathing pattern that's different to the one you always breathe with the bike.
Yes.
Right?
Yeah.
Now, if you get on the bike and feel really scared, that's the default movement. You might need someone to hold the bike. You might have to tell yourself, I'm going to be okay. Take a breath and have someone help you on the bike, but just go around the block. Now, going around the block's never as thrilling as going down the hill, but when you go around the block slowly, you start to smell the roses and you can see the view. Yeah. So it's picking a tiny component.
Yes.
Of that. Think, breathe, move. The feel is almost expressing emotions. So I'm afraid of falling off the bike. I'm scared of someone laughing at me. You know, I'm not that good on the emotional bit, I have to say that. I'm a physio, so I like movement. I love the breathing. I like intellectualizing it and rationalizing the fears. I'm not so good at writing the emotions down. I've had a go once, and I think it might help me, but I don't have pain. But I thought I'd have a go. You seem to like it. It helped you, so that's good. It's horses for courses, isn't it? But the thing is, if you feel really good about that very tiny thing, the brain then starts to remember where the dopamine came from. Oh, I've lost you.
Oh, hang on.
Yeah, I can hear you, but your camera's gone off. There we are. Yeah. So the brain remembers what it was that brought that pleasurable, yes, you've done it. So you have to give almost an excessive celebration to something very tiny. Yes, you did it. Get in there, Drew. And that might be after just breathing for 2 minutes. Yes.
Yes.
Clench your fist. Get in there. Yes.
Yeah.
And let it fade. Do all the other behaviors like you've done. But the next day, as you see the bike, or you see the cue, the computer screen, where you default to it's going to be a bad day, and I've got the budget report. If you have a different thought, the brain will almost release dopamine to compel you to do the other behavior. Right? And as you start to do the new behavior that feels nice, it inherently feels nice, it's quite calming, but then you wire the dopamine process to it, it starts to get stronger. Then this pathway fades without trying. So you should never have to try. That's why you always keep the target really tiny.
Yeah, see, I think that's what I've not done. I mean, I think I did that right at the beginning when we were talking about walking around the garden. I didn't even really think about it. I didn't overthink it. I kept it very tiny. Of course, the minute you do that and it works, my natural reaction is then to overthink it and think, right, so now I need to do this.
So that's the moment you capture the thoughts and go, there it is again. So if it's a physical exercise, and I'll say to someone, okay, so all I want you to do is let your knees roll side to side, and I'll get them to breathe and whatever, and they'll say, the pain's gone. I say, okay. And then they'll say, then the brain, I'll try to drag them back.
Yes, exactly.
Well, if I do this 5 times a day, and will it get better quicker?
Yeah.
And I say, if I wrote that down before you said it, I showed you, what would you say? They went,
It's weird, isn't it? It almost does make you laugh, because you
just awareness.
Think, can I really be this stupid? Do you know what I mean?
Well, remember, we're just trying to make ourselves feel better.
Yes, exactly. That's exactly it, isn't it? You're just trying to make yourself feel better. It's just the weirdest thing. Yeah,
and if you look into childhood, you don't have to have childhood trauma. It's just we've associated pushing hard with reward. the system for reward. And if, yes, I fully understand people have had trauma, so you do these things to get safe in the moment and might have to repeat them a lot in some childhoods, and that's really sad. But those behaviors bring those people so much success through that drive, or so much fear, so they don't live life. But once you realize the pain that comes from either fear or frustration or pushing too hard or not pushing at all, you can change the emotions and actually start to live your life in a more balanced way.
Yeah, I think that's the key for me, is just take it steady, little tiny steps at the time, and also to remind myself that I've done really well. Up to this point, I've actually done really well to actually get this far.
You have.
That's so critical. The other problem I have, and I keep trying to stop myself from doing it because that in itself perpetuates it, is when you want to tell everybody else how well you're doing, and you want everybody else to do as well as you, and you recognize in other people that that's what that is. And you think, no, I can't say anything. These people need to be able to come to this in their own time. Mind, and all I'll end up doing is over empathizing, and I'll probably pick up what they've got simply because I'm over empathizing.
That's right. And as soon as you can substitute that little mechanism that I'm describing to you for something you love, with people you love, you don't walk by the river with someone you love and say, we need to do this 7 times.
No, exactly.
You don't. After 2 minutes of breathing, it's just like, wow, you've done it 7. It doesn't matter. The numbers don't matter, because it feels good. It's already taken you further along the spectrum, rather than the fear, frustration, to the point of neutrality, where it's like elevator music. You've always got these exercises when you're feeling quite neutral, have to push you along to doing something you love, something that's for you, something that defines you, attending to you. It doesn't have to be the most blissful moment of your life. It has to be a boundary that says, this is for me, this is for me, not for work, not for my partner, not for my kids, not for someone else that I feel better by doing for them, because that's the old behaviors. It doesn't mean you have to change who you are. It just means if you've got pain, the balance isn't right. And pain's your last chance saloon before disease. Pain's the last chance saloon for us all before disease.
Yeah.
It really is. And if it just keeps someone stuck, then they may never get any more health conditions from that, but it just stops you living life, doesn't it? It
just makes your whole world smaller. That's the problem. It makes you not take that project that you might have really done well at, and actually would have got the adrenaline from, and the dopamine and everything else, because you did a really good job of it. But you don't take it because you think, what if this happens? What if I end up incapacitated with migraine and I can't do the job that I love to do? That's all it does. And in the earlier days, that would have been frustrating, made me angry, and that would have made it just worse, basically. That's the thing I've definitely learned how to deal with so much better than I did before. All I'm trying to do now is to try and make sure I find those cues, see those cues, and interrupt those cues, early. And that's the thing now. That's the work I'm trying to do to actually make that.
Well, whenever you catch that cue, I chat to people every day about this, but I say sometimes they describe what you're describing.
Yeah.
I say to them as a suggestion to kind of give them an alternate behavior, ask themselves what would, you've gone. Oh, there you are, got you.
Oh, sorry, because I had to plug you in. I was losing power, so I had to plug you in.
That's okay. I say to them, in that moment where you recognize the cue, just to give yourself almost a reminder, say, what would the zebra do now? What would the zebra do now? So the zebra doesn't have much option, doesn't have a neocortex, doesn't have a thinking brain. It would just, after the chase, or just to the chase, it would, after the chase really, to kind of bring themselves down, it would breathe and it would shake it all off. It would do something that represents safety to the nervous system, but like Alan Gordon says, do something that makes your system feel safe.
Yeah.
And having little tricks handy, like I'm sure you've got lots, is just making sure you tap into them in those moments. And then you essentially have a fork in the road for those cues, when historically it's always just the default.
Yeah. Yeah, it's just remembering them all, isn't it? That's the thing.
Well, yeah. It's once you've habituated, do you have to remember to brush your teeth today?
Yeah, I do. That's not a good
That wasn't very good,
example.
was it? Oh, it's not, is it?
Not a good example.
People say no. You have to. You didn't forget to get dressed though, did you?
No, absolutely not. No, that's a good example.
You
Yes.
didn't give that any thought apart from choosing what to wear, maybe, but you didn't give it that much conscious thought. Putting on your socks and your shoes and your jumper, and it was just on your glasses. It was just all automatic. Didn't take conscious. If we measured each of the conscious thoughts, it'd be minimal, just based on cues, automated behaviours.
Yeah.
And but your mum or dad has said, have you put your socks on? Have you put your trousers on? Are you ready? Da, da, da. You're late for school. In the end, stop shouting. Yeah. Oh, you've dressed nice. Well done. So you get a positive reward. Oh, you look nice there.
Yeah.
Let me check your tie. Let me do this. Oh, you look lovely. Great. So you're rewarded. And your brain thinks, oh, that's fine. Dopamine released every time I do this. Right. Let's automate that.
Yeah. That makes sense. That makes more sense, actually, when you just said that and then dopamine released and away we go.
Yeah.
That makes sense.
So the baby, when you had your first steps, you didn't even remember this. You took your first step. Did your mum and dad, did you have a mum and dad when you were born, Elizabeth?
Yes.
They were with you, your carers, yeah? So your carers at the time. So you took a first step and your mum and dad were stood there like this. Well, once you took your second step, to give that, if you ever, as you got to 5 and 6 and 7, when you walked in the room, they'd stop clapping by then. They'd already wired that reward and moved on to the next.
Yeah.
So the child looks at mum and dad and says, every time I take a step, these two jokers start clapping their hands. So, because it feels nice to the child to be rewarded. And the child's forever looking for a reward. They'll say things and they'll say, oh, that's amazing. And then the child will say it 4 or 5 times and say, oh, stop saying that. So the child has to do something else. So that's growth, isn't it? It's always learning. And once it feels normal, it moves from the pleasure section in the brain across to the routine. Right.
Okay. Yeah. So the key there is that's the pleasure. And then once you've done that enough times, that just becomes the normal routine of what your brain feels about it.
Yes. And you get it there through emotion.
Yeah.
And the things we're learning aren't that exciting.
Yeah.
We get our adrenaline from boom, 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 boom. So we're allowed to use that. You're allowed to go and do an amazing project. I'm allowed to go and get a certificate and open another clinic. I'm not going to, by the way. It took me, I got to 6 clinics. I thought, I'm chasing something here. I'm back to 1. I've restructured. I don't chase it anymore, but I know how it works. Yeah. But now I take a Wednesday off and smell the roses and enjoy being, if you like, without being too hippie about it. And it means that you do smell the roses. You get a chance to smell the roses.
Yeah, that's the difference, isn't it? And that's been the difference for me as well. A lot of that, taking care of yourself and looking after yourself and doing things that are good and feel good for yourself, And it's funny because I always used to have to take myself off to bed for a migraine. Actually, sometimes now at lunchtime, I don't have a migraine, but I still go up and I lay down on the bed and have a little rest.
Brilliant.
Because I think, well, why shouldn't I? Why should I not do that?
If that's the threshold and you start to act there, the threshold lifts.
Yeah, see, that's the thing, isn't it? It's finding those different ones where you can say, that's actually going to make a difference. That's rewiring my brain to go, look, you've been really a good person this morning. You deserve a nice lay down and you don't need to get a headache to have one,
Yeah. Do you need pain to look after yourself? That's what I say to people. Do you need pain before you'll attend to yourself? Or do you need pain to be this much before you'll say no to everyone?
Yeah. And that is the critical thing for me, because in the past as well, if I had a migraine, I would almost beat myself up about it afterwards. So I'd work even harder afterwards. I'd push even harder and think, that's not going to beat me. That's not going to beat me. I'm going to push really hard this week. And the other weird thing is I always knew that if I had a migraine, the day after, I wouldn't have one. I knew I wouldn't. I'd have one all day. I'd go to bed. I'm not a 3-day migraine person. It was a 1 day. and I go to bed and I go to sleep, and the next morning I'd wake up and I'd feel tired, but I'd feel fine. So I'd push myself really hard the next day because I knew I wasn't going to get a migraine. I could get loads done. And you think, well, when you look back and you look at all those things, you think, oh, everything drops into place. That's what I'm saying. When I read your book and I got to chapter 11 and I was underlining all these things, I was thinking lack of control, all the things that cause you to feel like overthinking, all those things are me. And I was thinking of all the examples where I've done that in the past. And I can even remember an example where I was practicing the principles you talk about, but just didn't realize it. I was out in the kitchen one day and a migraine was really building up. And I just put the radio on and started chopping some veg.
Oh, right.
And I just stood there thinking, I don't care what happens. I've had enough. I'm fed up. I don't care. I'm just going to stand here, chop the veg and listen to the radio. And if I don't get the dinner done, I don't care. And all of a sudden, my pain in my head went. And I thought, how did that's never happened to me. And I have to say it didn't happen to me again. But I can look back now on things that happened to me in the past and go, that's why that happened to me, because it didn't matter anymore. It wasn't important anymore. And I was listening to the radio and I was enjoying listening to the radio, and it was a nice thing that I was doing. And I stopped seeing it as, oh my God, I've been to work all day and now I've got to come in here and cook the tea. I actually didn't see it like that in that moment. I just didn't connect those two things together all those years ago. But now I can see where they're connected, and that's another one I do now when I'm cooking. I used to hate cooking, but now if I can put a podcast on or I can listen to a BBC Sounds story that I love, I'm halfway through The Man Whose House Disappeared in Northern Ireland at the moment. That's it. Tory he lived on. Well, because you've got something that you're really enjoying and you're listening to and you include that in it, then I find that makes a massive difference as well, because that's something I'm enjoying doing.
Yeah. Do you feel like you understand yourself a lot better?
Yeah, absolutely. 100%. And I just think it's a shame that other people don't. And in a way, so they don't have pain, but I still think that sometimes people don't understand themselves as well as they could. And yes, the pain, if somebody said to me, you can have pain for 25 years to understand yourself, I'll probably say, no, thank you. I probably would say no, thank you. Because that's a long time to have migraines and feel like that. But I know that actually, after all that time, I do understand myself. And other people, this pandemic has been awful for other people. For me, it's been a treat. It sounds terrible, but it's when I started to properly say to myself, right, I'm not traveling anymore. I'm not driving to Watford or getting on the train to London anymore. I'm here at home at 5 o'clock in the evening. I'm going to stop what I'm doing. And the first thing I did was the Curable app. That's what got me to this point. I went from Curable to Alan Gordon to Nicole Sachs to you, thanks to a lovely guy on Nicole's forum who told me about you. And then I joined yours. And it was that group.
Was it Harry?
Yeah.
No? Was it Harry? Yeah. I don't have met him. I'm going to ask if I can have a chat with Harry as well, because he seems like he understands himself so much better as well.
Yeah. And he was lovely, because I did feel a bit, I think I just got a bit jaded with the Journal Speak one, because I felt that I was improving and people were coming up with all sorts of awful things that were happening to them. And I thought, and also I'm one of those people that wants to do the right thing, say the right thing. I'm a person who likes to please. If I see things on the television that make me very, very sad, I completely deluge myself in that sadness and how terrible those things are. My husband doesn't. He steps back and goes, oh, well, that's always happening in that country, And I go, oh, you can't say that. That's a terrible thing to say, And I get really emotionally upset by that. So for me, when I see things where people are saying, I'm not even sure I want to be alive anymore because my pain is so bad, I'm thinking, oh, my God. Yeah. And he happened to be on there that day and said, oh, there's this other guy who's doing this stuff, and this is the book that he's written, and you should come over to that forum and join in that. That's why I joined yours. And I bought the book straight away. And it's funny because I've read Nicole Sachs' book and I've read Sarno's original, the Mind Body prescription, which is really dry and really boring. And Nicole's, I actually like listening to her podcasts. I enjoy her podcasts, but I don't like her book. But your book was the first book that made a difference to me, because the way you outlined every single element in detail really helped me, because I'm a detail person, and I wanted to be able to go yes and yes and yes and yes, and everything was a yes.
Oh,
and that really made a difference to me. Yeah.
Oh, thank you. Well, I'm sure you've got the intellectual age that's higher than a 12-year-old, but I wrote it at that level. So that once you're going to accept or reject ideas, it's about the age of 12, 9 onwards. But by 12, it's subject to any other kind of issues. Normally, you can accept or reject ideas without it being too technical. Because so I ran it past my son. I kept running it past my son, each chapter.
He understand it.
And and I thought, well, it's maybe that's that, and I kind of researched it as much as I could, and then distilled it to that level of delivery. And for you to say that's lovely, though, it's great, because it's not for everyone. You know, some people it doesn't do it for me, but you'll never do that with any book.
No, I think that was the point. I'd read the 3, and Nicole's is very inspiring. If you really are not sure whether you believe, then I think it's very inspiring. It makes you think, you know, she's got something here, maybe. And, you know, if you're somebody that suffered with backache all your life, you probably do say, how is that connected in any way? So I get why, but for her, that didn't work for me, because I needed the detail. I needed to understand the process of how that does that to your brain. That's what the difference for me. And you're right, it depends on the person and what they're looking for at that time. Yeah,
you're right. I think we're listening to you. I'm very much like you in terms of that perfectionism and working it all out. Wouldn't know why. I think you do I'm not assessing you in any way, but you know, as a kind of pot shot, you overthink. That was the issue.
Without,
you know, you're very good at the emotional bit. You know how to do that, and it took you some point of recovery. But it has to be all 4: think, breathe, move, feel. One can unlock them all. Sometimes you need 2. Sometimes you need all 4. You need all 4. So it's for you, movement is if you come unstuck a little bit, move in any which way. If you can move in a way that you love, whether there's a song you dance to, or a silly song, or something you remember dancing with your husband with, or being out in the garden, something intuitively that hits the spot for you, that's the thing to go for in that moment. And then breathe. I don't know if you use the breathing, but
I do use the breathing. Your breathing technique was similar to some that I learned on Curable. And also the other one I learned was, and I found that I can sleep better now because of the breathing technique. So I'm finding that when I go to bed, because I think, doesn't the breathing technique slow down or your parasympathetic system? It relaxes you, basically.
That's right. It's a rest and digest technique.
So for me, I've always been in fight or flight. That was the other thing I discovered, is that I was constantly in fight or flight. And I'm not sure I even recognized rest and digest, because when I thought I was in rest or digest, clearly I wasn't. Do you know what I mean?
It felt normal to you, though?
That's part of the problem when you're doing it, is the practice. So I meditate every day now. I used to meditate years ago, and I used to meditate when I felt like I might get a headache, or when I might feel a bit stressed, and that doesn't work. I found that practice is really important with meditation, because you train your brain to
I've lost you, Elizabeth.
To calm. Oh, am I back?
Are you talking? You're back. You train your brain to calm down. So so if you have committed to meditation every day or whatever, that is amazing, right? But that's almost making sure out of not out of fear, but I best do this because it really helps. If I don't do it, it could be a problem. A little bit like that. But once you get skilled in that, and you've committed that so much effort to that, use that in a way that when you flip the kettle through the day, when you're in the middle of the work and the project, but you're going to have a wee, or you're going to put the kettle on. And I say this to patients: as you flip the kettle, you take one breath. It's one breath. 5 in, 5 out. Now, as I've done that with you, the hairs on my arms are just lifted up.
Yeah.
My brain is thinking, is it relax time? Is it relax time? It gets excited about something relaxing. So I've just had a little shot of serotonin. I didn't need to do 2 minutes. My brain thinks, are you going to do some more? But I don't need to. But it's just, I've just given myself a little hit without needing 10, 15 minutes. Or so if this is my day going up, or yours, end of the day need to come down, it means at 10 o'clock you do this, 12 o'clock you do this, 2 o'clock you do this.
Yeah, build those little moments in. Those little spaces.
So it's people, and I say to people, the buy-in is, where's the commitment there? You don't. There's tiny. And if you just take that one breath and go, yes, I've done it. It's Elizabeth's time. Or you have a little stretch of your back if it's back pain, or someone moves the neck in that tiny moment, say, yes. And then they get back to go and fight fires and care for the granny and scream at the kids and, have a fight. They've got to do what they've got to do. But if they wait till the end of the day to find time for themselves,
it's too late. Too late. And for me, like I say, I've managed to do that over 2-3 weeks and think, wow, this is working. And then it was too late at that point. So it's almost like it stretched itself out. I was getting better and better at it, but it was getting longer and longer and longer. And it's just trying to get me to the point where it never drops down into that mode.
And think of that. Think of what that pain represents to you. It's protected you for 25 years.
Yeah.
Probably longer when you looked at the other things. It's protected you as an organism from what comes beyond pain.
Yes.
If it lets you go and takes all your pain away, can it trust you? Can it trust you? Lads, do you think we can go 4 weeks? I'm not sure. She gets a bit. Give her 5. See what happens.
Give her 5.
It's like, so if you are consistently doing it, it's like, hey, lads, she's in the bath and the baddie dash is in the bath and she's got no pain. Hey, this is all right. Let's down tools then. No, she's thinking about work. Up we go again. It's if you keep convincing, it just wants to get on and survive another day.
That's the key, isn't it? You've got to keep convincing it. You've got to keep saying, come on, it's all fine. It's all fine. Now I'm telling it it's fine. It doesn't need to be me anymore. It's fine.
You have to demonstrate it. Demonstrate it. So when your feet hit the floor, it thinks, oh, this is just a good day. We're going to have a break at 10, 12 and 4. Because if you put your foot down and haven't done that, it thinks, oh my God, he's a 12-hour shift and a project and a drive to Watford. Well, that predictive coding, it knows what that will feel like for 6 weeks in a row. I've got
a really good one next Thursday, and you'll have to ask me how I do, because next Thursday is my first day back in the office for 18 months, and it's not even my office, it's Canary Wharf. And whenever I go to Canary Wharf, I always come out the wrong tube exit and end up going down, turning left instead of turning right. So I've made my mind up beforehand. This whole technique of I'm going to really look forward to today. There are so many good things that are going to happen today. Canary Wharf is a great place. There's tons of places to eat and shop and drink coffee. I'm meeting my new boss there. He just wants to go out for a drink. So that's okay. That's all great. That's lovely. If I'm late or if I come out the wrong entrance, then so what? I've always managed to find my way there. So I'm definitely going to do it this time. Do you know what I mean? I'm not going to end up in the river. So it's just trying to think up all the wonderful emotional things that I'm going to look forward to doing on that day. To stop me from what I used to do, which would be dreading it and saying to myself, the train will be late, I'll be really late, might be cross with me, all that crap that goes on or did go on in my head. That is one thing that I have managed to change. That thing that you do in your head, that recording in your head where you keep saying to yourself, this is going to be awful, this is going to be bad, what if I'm late, he won't like me, all that. And I keep saying to myself, for goodness sake, Liz, you're 54. If people don't like you now, then they can bugger off, quite honestly. So
that little pattern you described, the positive one for next Thursday, you just did it for me once. You've done it before this, I'm sure, because you just reeled off. That's twice. if you did that 7 times before next week, it's already wired because you start to smile, you start to laugh, you come alive.
I'm missing the 7 times, Drew. I need
don't worry about the number.
Times.
Attach the emotion to it. The emotion's already attached. You smiled. You thought of places to eat. Your body went, eat. Oh, we'll try this. It became automatic.
Yeah.
So the number doesn't matter so much. It's the emotional intensity.
Yes.
Attached to it.
Yeah, that's the thing that I think I've been missing, is the emotional intensity. That's the key, isn't it, for me, really? I'm doing the movement, I'm doing the breathing, not as often as I should be, but I'm definitely doing them. It's the emotional intensity that surrounds that activity.
Yeah, you are intellectual and you're intellectualizing it. You need to feel it as well.
Yeah.
Feel it. It's a bit like, oh, this is how I dance, and this is interesting, dancing like this. And yes, I like putting my feet one foot in front of the other. It's like, no, feel the music and just move, baby. Just get in and feel it. And that's a bit, I struggle with feeling. I struggle with feeling. But you're doing amazing. I'm so grateful you shared that. Like,
oh, it's my pleasure.
You've done amazing. You really should be proud of yourself. And
I am.
I'm not anyone to praise you. I just think you've done amazing. And
I'm very proud of myself for doing it. And I'm just glad that I did it. And I'm kind of glad that if my kids end up in similar situations, they've got somebody to give them some support and help them through it and help them do the right thing.
That's where the lessons have value. We can't change anything in the past, but you can pass it on, can't you? And they might not be ready to listen.
Oh, one of them already is. She was trained ballet dancer all of her childhood. That was another thing that I was running around doing all the time, driving all over the country and getting on planes while I was working as well. God, when I think about it. And she did suffer trauma. I say to her, you had trauma because your ankle wouldn't do what it wanted you to do. You had to give it up. You couldn't become a professional ballet dancer. You know, the little stomach problems and the little things that have happened to her over the past couple of years, I think, are her body trying to deal with the trauma of that, you know, and she recognizes that as well, which is good, you know, and she's dealing with that in her own way at the moment. But, you know, I think she recognizes that her brain is causing those little problems that she's got, those little things that are incapacitating her.
It becomes very easy to see in others, doesn't it?
Yeah. And then I feel really sad because my dad died at 66 and he had migraines. And I'm sure that's probably my experience of you know, you say your experience of your parents and how they dealt with situations. So he worked extremely long hours. He worked in the film industry. He worked very, very long hours. He came home, he drank huge amounts of black coffee and took 6 Anadin at a time. And I've got to a stage where I was doing things like that. And I think, you know, I am just copying my father, but he never had all of this knowledge and this insight and this information today that could have completely changed the way he felt and the way he did his job, because he loved his job. You know, it was a great job, but he was always in pain with it. He was always having migraines with it. So, yeah, it is sad to think of the people you wish could have been helped with it as well.
Well, you're a shining example of how someone can recover and is still recovering, I suppose. But you are your great example. Look down on your sheet. Have you covered everything on that list that you wanted to tell me?
Probably not.
I can't let you go. I can't let you go without with me. You'll finish and say, "I never told him this." Are we there?
Most of it, I'm there.
Great.
And had I focused and concentrated on this list, I would have been really cross with myself for not getting bits in. But actually, through the just generally going, doesn't matter whether I do or I don't, whatever I'm thinking about is up here in my brain and I'm talking about it and enjoying talking about it, has meant that most of the things that are on here are on what we talked about.
Can you see the two sides of you? Because I can. That all that's on the paper there is the intellectual side. And this is who you are. This is Liz laughing at a bit of crack and telling a story, and you're not embarrassed or shy, or if you are, I can't see it. I was probably I could chat to you all night, you know. So, but if I had just read that information and never saw you, you know, you make a different impression about someone, don't you? So it's knowing there's a side of us that makes us feel comfortable, but actually outside of that comfort, there's another experience.
Yeah.
There's another experience that actually it's nice to have that too.
Oh, it is. And I don't think I had that up until, you know, at least 6 months ago. I probably was still thinking through intellectually and process wise what I need to say, what I need to do, how I need to do it, where I need to get to. It doesn't help actually working in a corporate environment, because most of their training courses, if you think about them, are appalling.
I haven't done them.
Now I look at them now, I think they're appalling. They're all about, what's your goal? You need to hit your goal. By the end of this meeting, your goal is this, and you need to have met that goal. And I take those things very literally, or have done in the past. So if at any point I thought I'm not meeting my goal by the end of that meeting, then that's a failure. That's a massive failure. The fact that I might then go and have a coffee with somebody and then go, yeah, I'll do that for you. And you think, oh, I had the whole meeting and actually I could have just had a coffee with this person and they would have said yes. Do you know what I mean? That's kind of an example of it, because really that's what corporate teaches you. It teaches you to do everything very, very specifically in a process way, and to meet those targets, you know, and actually sometimes that's not the best way to go about it.
The best deals are around over the coffee table, aren't there? Sometimes? The best relationships, the best negotiations. So
took me a long time to work that one out though.
Well, thank you so much for your time.
It's my pleasure.
It's really, I hope you stay in touch. I've kind of, the group is what it is, but I almost look at it, I think, I hope people don't, you know, think they have to, people don't only stay as long as they want to stay, but I hope it's a group where people kind of dip in and think, you know, I'm done. I don't need this. If they want to contribute or cast an eye occasionally over it, but just something that helped me in a moment of time and I can move on. And,
your group for me is more that you kind of put in little reminders that are actually very helpful. So you sometimes add stuff where I think, yeah, that's right. You know, it kind of lodges it back in your brain. Some of the other groups, like I say, I don't really go on anymore because it's too much, it's too traumatic, some of them. Whereas I'm finding that yours is a bit more people just kind of giving, oh, today I did this and this happened, you know, that kind of thing, which I find useful. Those kinds of things are really useful to me.
Well, however long you're involved, you're always welcome, and I'm very grateful, and I'm thankful that you're happy for me to share this, and people will be inspired by you.
Yeah, well, I'm more than happy to, because you wrote that book and that completely changed the last 10-20% of me, that book. It just, you wrote it about me, basically. I've decided how, I don't know, but you definitely wrote it about me.
Thanks, Elizabeth. It's been a pleasure. I hope you have a lovely evening.
Yeah, you too. Love to meet you.
And let me know how you get on in the group when a week on Thursday.
Oh yes, I will.
You'll have to put a little something in there.
I'll post something up.
All right. Take care.
See you then. Bye.
Okay, bye-bye.
Bye.